In the winter of 1001, an army crossed the Hindu Kush. Most people think this was the beginning of conquest. It was not. It was the beginning of a pattern. On this channel, we study moments where history did not turn on chance or heroism, but on discipline, systems and decisions made long before the first sword was drawn. Stories where outcomes felt sudden but were anything but accidental. This is not just a story about Mahmud of Ghazni and his wars in India. It is a story about why northern invasions succeeded again and again, and why the political systems of early medieval India were never able to stop the first wave. To understand that, we must stop looking at battles and start looking at structure. At the turn of the first millennium, northern India was not weak, it was wealthy, urbanized, culturally confident. Its kingdoms had survived centuries of conflict, Huns, internal wars, shifting dynasties. They had standing armies, fortified cities, and long traditions of kingship, but they shared a quiet assumption that invasions from the northwest would look like the invasions of the past: nomadic raids, short campaigns, seasonal pressure, a threat to be absorbed, not transformed. Beyond the mountains, in the highlands of Afghanistan, a different system was taking shape. The Ghaznavid state was not ancient. It was not culturally prestigious. It did not inherit power, it constructed it. Ghazni began as a frontier garrison town of the Samanid Empire. Its early rulers were slave commanders, trained for obedience, logistics, and war. Their legitimacy did not come from lineage, it came from results. When the Samanid system collapsed, Ghazni did not fracture, it consolidated. This mattered because the Ghaznavids were not organized like Indian kingdoms. They did not rely on feudal levies that assembled slowly. They did not depend on local nobles whose loyalty shifted with politics. They maintained a professional salaried army, Turkic cavalry, Persian administrators, clear chains of command. And most importantly, they operated on a rhythm: campaign, withdraw, reorganize, return. This was not conquest, it was pressure. Mahmud of Ghazni did not begin his campaigns intending to rule India. That is the first assumption to break. His early objectives were strategic and financial, not territorial. He needed revenue to sustain a military state in a harsh environment. He needed legitimacy in the Islamic world, and he needed to neutralize threats on his eastern frontier. India offered all three. But Mahmud also understood something deeper: that the greatest strength of Indian kingdoms, their decentralization, was also their greatest vulnerability. No single power coordinated defense across regions. Rival kings watched invasions strike their neighbors, calculating advantage rather than unity. Mahmud exploited this. His first major target was the Shahi kingdom of Kabul and Punjab, a frontier state, hardened by war, not easily intimidated. The Shahis expected a raid. What they received was preparation. Mahmud did not rush. He secured supply routes through the mountains. He timed his campaigns to avoid monsoon seasons. He ensured retreat paths before advancing. When he met King Jayapala near Peshawar, the battle was not decided by bravery, it was decided by cohesion. The Ghaznavid cavalry maneuvered as a single organism. Jayapala's forces fought with valor, but without unified command. When defeat came, it was not annihilation, it was psychological. Jayapala's ritual suicide after capture shocked the region, not because kings had never fallen, but because this defeat felt final. Still, nothing was inevitable. Mahmud faced risks every time he crossed the mountains. Indian forces outnumbered him. Terrain favored defenders. Extended campaigns could collapse supply lines, but Mahmud showed restraint. He did not hold territory he could not defend. He did not overextend to satisfy pride. He withdrew again and again after striking. Each withdrawal created a dangerous illusion that the threat had passed. Indian rulers fortified temples and cities, but did not reform military coordination. They strengthened walls, not systems. Mahmud returned with precision: Mathura, Kanauj, Somnath. These were not random targets. They were symbols of economic and political gravity. Temple cities functioned as financial centers, land grants, stored wealth, trade hubs. Mahmud attacked infrastructure, not populations. He dismantled nodes of power, then left. This pattern prevented unified resistance. By the time alliances formed, the campaign was already over. Over 17 campaigns, Mahmud did not build an empire in India. He built familiarity. The mountain passes became highways, intelligence networks expanded, local politics were mapped and remembered. Each invasion taught the Ghaznavids what worked and what did not. Loot funded administration. Administration funded armies. Armies preserved the state. It was a self-reinforcing system. Indian kingdoms, by contrast, treated each invasion as an anomaly, a disaster, a punishment, a story of desecration, not as a warning. The Ghaznavidian wars did not end Indian civilization. They did something more subtle. They normalized invasion. They demonstrated that the northwest frontier was not a shield but a door. By the time true conquest arrived, the psychological barrier had already fallen. Mahmud of Ghazni did not conquer India, he prepared it. History rarely changes in a single moment. It changes when patterns repeat and no one adapts. The Ghaznavid invasions were not the end of an era, they were the first signal. If you want to explore the next chapter, the transition from raids to rule, or another moment where systems shaped destiny, let us know in the comments. If this story held your attention, consider subscribing. These are the stories that do not shout but endure.